side. Pagi pa kami nagsisika. Inuupo yung isang bata. Nakikika. Oh my goodness. Yep. Good. Hello, horsey. Tigidig. Hindi, diretso lang. Diretso. tawag doon? Victory dance. It's nice to pedal again. Nasaan ang ilaw mo?
Ayun nga.
Saan mo nilagay?
Did you put it away?
No.
Sorry, I don't remember.
on this Sunday night: smoke, fire, and fear.
Let's go, 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 go!
Raging wildfires force evacuation orders in Manitoba, Alberta, and BC.
Just breathe.
And the smoke smothering Western Canada. Major shakeup. The Russian president takes action after a missile strike on an apartment building on Russian soil. Israel in isolation. 7 months after the Hamas attack, fighting flares and the backlash grows. And a chance family reunion decades and worlds apart.
Martin, I think that I found my sister.
But that wouldn't be all. The coincidence that made it possible.
Global National with Farah Nasser. Reporting tonight, Colleen Christie.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. The erupting wildfire emergency is gripping Western Canada tonight. It's only early May and already wildfires are sparking and spreading.
Holy
In Manitoba, a fire north of Flin Flon exploded in size overnight. Towering flames forced 700 people in the community of Cranberry Portage to flee Saturday night. The fire activity there is extreme, and strong winds mean it could spread quickly. It's one of a number of wildfires threatening communities across Manitoba, Alberta, and BC tonight, where residents are being ordered out or must be prepared to leave at a moment's notice. Following Canada's worst wildfire season in recorded history, there are fears this one will be just as devastating. Julia Foy has our top story.
It's okay. Just breathe.
Grandmother Rena Moore of Fort Nelson tries to calm her family after they pass a raging fire along the highway heading out of town.
My son and daughter-in-law, my mom and I, and we went up to Hot Springs for the day. You don't have cell service.
Desperate to get back to their home, they saw a car coming towards them and stopped.
We flagged her down. I said, how was it? She says, it's scary, but I made it. I said, okay, let's go. And so my son drove, and we made it through in just over a minute.
It's pretty significant. You know, we've told people sort of this is their last warning to get out of town.
On Sunday, officials were pleading with all remaining residents of Fort Nelson and the Fort Nelson First Nation, a community of 3,500, to evacuate from the area.
It's starting to get worse. The fire's, you know, within 3 kilometers of the community to the west of us, and they're expecting westerly winds today.
Just over the border in Alberta, 160 fires are burning, the largest near Fort McMurray and Grand Prairie. Local residents are heading out to safety, many on an evacuation order.
Our number one priority is protecting Albertans and their communities, so we're doing everything we can on this one.
Come on, you guys, get out.
In Manitoba, 700 people were ordered to leave their homes Saturday night from the community of Cranberry Portage after a wildfire jumped Highway 10.
People are just trying to pack their stuff, loading up their boats, their quads, anything they could, campers.
It's okay, they're blocking it coming north.
As for Moore, with her family evacuated from Fort Nelson, this Mother's Day will be spent helping to feed and care for emergency workers and firefighters.
Everybody pulls together. It's an old-fashioned community up here. We're a family.
Julia Foy, Global News, Burnaby.
Choking smoke from those wildfires is blanketing communities across Western Canada today. Special air quality statements are in effect for large swaths of Alberta, as well as for communities in northern BC and on the Manitoba-Saskatchewan border. Smoke from that major wildfire near Fort Nelson, BC, blew into Calgary and Edmonton today. At times, the air quality index registered a moderate or high health risk. It was so smoky in Calgary this morning, kids' soccer games were canceled. The wildfires caused telecommunications outages, including to 911 services, but they're now mostly restored in the Yukon and northern BC. The wildfire west of Fort Nelson damaged fiber lines needed for the emergency hotline. Yukon's government says repairs are ongoing and that service may be intermittent over the next few days. Russian President Vladimir Putin has proposed a major shakeup of his cabinet, replacing his defense minister, Sergei Shoigu, with former Deputy Prime Minister Andrei Belousov. Shoigu has served in that role throughout Russia's war in Ukraine, and the announcement comes on the same day of a deadly explosion at an apartment block near the Ukrainian border. Russian media say at least 9 people have been killed after an intercepted Ukrainian missile hit the building in Belgorod. The Kremlin labeled the incident barbaric. It happened not far from where Russia claimed to have seized villages just inside Ukraine's border. The area is part of the Kharkiv region that Russia took control of at the start of its full-scale invasion in 2022. That's until Ukraine reclaimed the lost territory later that year. As Redmond Shannon reports, all of these events could mark important turning points in the war.
An entire section of an apartment block collapses following what appears to be an explosion at its base. But this is not Ukraine. This is the Russian city of Belgorod near the Ukrainian border. This area of Russia has seen an increasing number of attacks as the war has progressed, usually at military targets. The local governor says part of a missile from Ukraine killed and injured civilians. The Kremlin has called it a criminal use of weapons supplied by the West. Ukraine has not commented. Destruction too on the Ukrainian side of the border. That could mark a new phase of the war. Russian troops crossed into Ukraine's Kharkiv region on Friday, a new surprise offensive for land they captured and lost in 2022. Troops are evacuating thousands of people from border villages, which Ukraine says it is fighting to hold on to. This man says he was shot in the hand by a Russian soldier. The incursions are a half-hour drive from Ukraine's second largest city of Kharkiv.
It's scary. It's very scary for us.
Demining equipment maker Igor Yefimenko lives in Kharkiv and says it shouldn't be forgotten that Russia started the war.
After they came here in Kharkiv, we revenge them. And when I see that in Belgorod bombing, I think that should be.
Sunday's decision by Russian President Vladimir Putin to replace his defense minister comes after Sergei Shoigu spent 12 years in the job. Shoigu is being moved to a role as chair of Russia's Security Council. His replacement is former Deputy Prime Minister Andrei Belousov, not a military man, but an economist, perhaps a sign of how important funding is to the future of this conflict. Colleen?
Thanks, Redmond. The widow of Alexei Navalny accepting this year's Dresden Peace Prize, awarded posthumously to the late Russian opposition leader. Yulia Navalnaya received a standing ovation and spoke out against Russia's war in Ukraine, saying, quote, "Alexei spoke openly about the threat Putin poses to the world, and I will do so always as long as Putin is in power." The award is for people who have rendered outstanding services to peace and international understanding. In February, Navalny died unexpectedly at a remote Russian Arctic penal colony. To the crisis in Gaza, where there is growing anxiety over the Israeli military's expected assault on Rafah. More than 1 million Palestinian refugees face uncertainty in the area. Despite Israeli orders to evacuate, there's almost nowhere safe for them to go, while a dangerous shortage in humanitarian aid sets in. As Mackenzie Gray reports, Israel remains steadfast in its plan despite risking growing international alienation.
Months after the Israelis first took control of northern Gaza, fierce fighting has resumed, with both sides confirming extensive attacks, including in a refugee camp just outside of Gaza City, an area the UN has warned before the fighting broke out could soon be experiencing a full-blown famine.
I'm deeply distressed by the fast deteriorating conditions in Gaza as Israeli forces intensify airstrikes on Jabalia and Beit Lahia in northern Gaza.
Concerns over famine tied to lack of goods getting into Gaza. The Israeli Defense Force is attempting to quell those concerns, releasing a video of a newly opened border crossing from Israel. But that need has increased since the Israelis have taken over the Rafah crossing, cutting off aid and seemingly preparing for a large-scale military invasion of the only area of Gaza they don't control. Warning, you're in a dangerous combat area. The IDF is about to operate with great force.
We've destroyed about 20 battalions of the Hamas's 24 terrorist battalions. We have another 4 to go there in Rafah, and that's why we want to go into Rafah.
An invasion Israel's most important ally is against.
We've said to Israel that we will not support an operation in Rafah, a major military operation, in the absence of a credible plan to protect civilians.
A stance supported by Canada and other Western countries who've nearly all called for a ceasefire.
We want to stop the fighting, get the hostages out, and remove the Hamas threat.
While the politics plays out, people are on the run. 300,000 estimated to be pushed out of Rafah, many going to the beach, hoping to avoid further violence. When I came here, I found my tent worn out, this woman said. I stayed in it for 5 months in Rafah with other displaced people. Western countries aren't the only ones pushing back. Egypt is now threatening to rip up a 40-year peace treaty with Israel if Rafah is invaded. And they're also joining South Africa's genocide case against Israel at the International Court of Justice. Colleen?
Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa. Mackenzie, thank you. More than 10 days into a pro-Palestinian encampment at the University of Toronto, there were more tense talks between student protesters and university officials. At a rally outside where the talks were being held, alumni stood in solidarity with protesters, threatening to tear up their degrees if the administration failed to listen to their demands, not unlike pro-Palestinian protests which have unfolded at several universities across North America over the last few weeks. In recent days, police aggressively dismantled encampments at the University of Calgary and the University of Alberta. But in Montreal today, another encampment was set up, this time at the University of Quebec. Global News has learned exclusive new details about the 4th suspect arrested yesterday in the murder of Hardeep Nijjar. According to a source familiar with the case, 22-year-old Amandeep Singh was allegedly one of 2 gunmen who shot Nijjar outside a Sikh temple last June. Like his 3 co-accused, Singh arrived in Canada on a temporary visa and is suspected of having links to India's violent Bishnoi crime group. Canada's national security agencies have been investigating an emerging trend in which foreign intelligence services are suspected of contracting out killings to crime groups. And you can read Stuart Bell's exclusive story at globalnews.ca. Coming up, armed forces failure, why a proposed class action settlement on racism in the military falls short for some. And on this Mother's Day, a family reunion that took 40 years and one simple gift to happen. A proposed settlement has been reached in a class action lawsuit against the Canadian Armed Forces. It's to help right the wrongs committed against members who say they've suffered racial discrimination in the military. But as Heidi Petracek reports, some say it misses the mark.
This is me sending off another response.
Former Canadian Forces member Wallace Fowler has been speaking out against racism in the military for more than 2 decades.
There's just been a lot of things that I've been fighting for with no justice.
He's one of the lead plaintiffs in a class action filed in 2016 against the federal government. The statement of claim describes how the lives of many have been devastated after it says the Canadian Forces has failed to protect racial minorities and Aboriginal peoples from racism within the ranks. Now there's a proposed settlement on the table of $150 million. Fowler says it's not about the money. What he wants is the kind of change he's not convinced is happening.
They get caught, and what happens is there's settlements, and these guys are still remain in position, right? That's the sad thing about it.
It just seemed that more and more people were accepting that type of behavior.
According to the lawsuit, plaintiff Jean-Pierre Robillard was called the N-word multiple times during his 17 years of service, including on deployment in the aftermath of the 2010 earthquake in Haiti. Despite that, he says he does respect the military as a whole, but individuals who committed acts of racism, he says, have never been properly held accountable.
Because on my end, it seems that the perpetrators are still in the services right now, misrepresenting Canada and their values.
This proposed settlement is all they have. It means the federal government doesn't admit liability An approval hearing is scheduled for July. The Minister of National Defence wouldn't comment on the proposed settlement because it hasn't been finalized. Canada's military has been working on anti-racism initiatives as it undergoes a major culture overhaul, which it has described as a top priority. Heidi Petrachik, Global News, Halifax.
Just ahead, a quarter century later, Kosovo war refugees reunite and remember. It's been 25 years since a deadly war in Kosovo led to thousands of refugees temporarily resettling in Canada. Tensions between Kosovo's ethnic Albanian majority and Serbian authorities forced families to flee their homes and find safety abroad. Global's Vanessa Wright spoke with two refugees who reflect on that moment a quarter century ago when everything changed.
Okay. It was in front of our eyes. Before we even left, it was like we were right there. I looked behind me, just like right behind me. Like, don't look.
It's how Arta Rexepi remembers watching her home in Kosovo burn down at just 13 years old.
I remember saying to myself, one day I am going to tell the world my story.
Rexepi was just one of thousands to flee their homes in the spring of 1999. Their province, a former federal republic of Yugoslavia, was at the height of a brutal civil war between the Albanian majority and Serbian officials. The Canadian government airlifted an initial 5,000 refugees to shelter at military bases in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Ontario through Operation Parasol. It brought Rexepi, her parents, and 3 of her 5 siblings to Halifax, a place they would settle and call home.
Little did I know that Canadians would build us back up piece by piece, and starting from our confidence into inspiring us to rewrite our stories.
An exhibit held in Halifax on Saturday acknowledged Kosovo refugees. It was Shokheti Tahiri Suleimani's first time guest speaking at an event in Canada. She fled Kosovo in her 20s, settling in Alberta not only as a refugee, but she says as a survivor of sexual assault by Serbian forces.
I went back and it was really hard to think about it, but in the same time, I was really happy, and I am happy I'm here.
Both Rexepi and Suleimani say reflecting on the past, including the trauma, has sparked healing, but say ongoing tensions between the countries show a long road ahead.
Kosovo came very far in 25 years, but for us survivors, it's still stigma there.
Peaceful resolutions need to come starting from acknowledging the past, acknowledging the war crimes and the atrocities that took place.
They hope Canada will be a part of sparking change as they did 25 years ago. Vanessa Wright, Global News, Halifax.
Next, how an unexpected gift has reunited a family separated by 40 years and 3 different countries. It's Mother's Day, and as Canadians honor our mums today, one family is celebrating a reunion 4 decades in the making, one that spans 3 different countries. As Gloria Enriquez tells us, it all began with an unexpected gift.
Martin Moya gave his wife Diana Angarita a birthday gift that would unknowingly change their lives forever.
When something is for you, you know? Because my husband wanted to give me that present.
Martin gave Diana a DNA test kit from a company called MyHeritage. Diana doesn't know her father. Her mom, Carmen, is an orphan. The present was meant to find more about her origins. When she got the test results in March,
my husband was beside me, and I told him, Martin, I think that I found my sister.
Diana grew up knowing her mom, Carmen, had given up her firstborn daughter for adoption. She had no means to care for the baby. I was so distraught when I left her, I was almost run over by a bus. I hadn't had food all day, nor a place to live, she said. Since that day, Carmen simultaneously carried a heavy weight in her soul and the unwavering belief that a miracle would take place.
She always telling me, we are going to find Xiomara one day. But for me, it was like, yes, mommy, it's impossible. Yeah. But yeah, she was right.
It's not time to make a change. Just relax
Xiomara in the Netherlands had also taken the same DNA test with the same company, and she too wanted to reconnect.
I hope to see you very, very soon, together with my son.
The wish Carmen held for more than 4 decades is just one flight away from coming true. That she hugs me and I hug her, and we're happy together with my grandson, she said. The family is planning to meet in person this Christmas in Colombia, so Diana can show her sister her roots.
It would be like the perfect Christmas, you know, like this is the real gift.
Look at me, I am old, but I'm happy.
The gift of family. Gloria Enriquez, Global News, Montreal.
That is cool. And that is Global National for this Sunday night. I'm Colleen Christie. Tonight's Your Canada is Prescott Marina in Prescott, Ontario. Thanks for watching. Carolyn Jarvis will be at the anchor desk tomorrow. Have a great night.